The autopsy of Betsy Arakawa revealed a completely new detail, something that had never been disclosed, nor even considered, before. It was a clue powerful enough to potentially change the entire trajectory of the case. She wasn't poisoned. She wasn't attacked. Nor did she suffer from any terminal illness. Yet, one part of her body exhibited an unusual sign, a discovery that could very well be the true culprit behind Betsy's death. So, what exactly did forensic experts uncover during this examination? Could this revelation finally unravel the mystery surrounding the deaths of Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa? Or does it open the door to something far more terrifying than the public had ever imagined? Let's dive into this shocking discovery in today's video. Stay tuned. 1. Key findings. Amidst the chaos of media reports and initial investigations, the role of an autopsy became pivotal in uncovering the truth. The autopsy report of Betsy Arakawa, along with analyses of Gene Hackman's pacemaker, provided the only scientific data capable of partially decoding the mystery and temporarily alleviating some suspicions. This is the clearest proof that when human accounts conflict, the body itself is the most truthful witness. The initial forensic report confirmed that neither body showed signs of trauma. There were no bruises, scratches, or soft tissue injuries, even minor ones. There were no signs of strangulation, stabbing, or traumatic brain injury. This immediately ruled out the possibility of physical assault from an external source. Simultaneously, environmental and toxic gas tests revealed that carbon monoxide, CO, levels were completely negative, while a small gas leak in the kitchen was determined to be too minor to cause death. Another critical factor came from Gene Hackman's pacemaker. Data from the device recorded its last activity on February 17, nearly 9 days before the bodies were discovered. This indicated that Hackman most likely passed away on that date, a crucial piece of information as it established the first death in the chain of events. From there, the decomposition signs on Arakawa's body, specifically facial swelling and hand desiccation, were evaluated to have occurred within a similar timeframe. This strongly supported the hypothesis that she died either shortly after or almost simultaneously with Hackman. However, the most anticipated forensic result was the toxicology report. At the time of the report's release, full data was still being processed, but preliminary analysis indicated no abnormal levels of toxic substances in Arakawa's blood. The prescription medications found in the room, including sedatives and cardiovascular drugs, were all legal, and their usage did not exceed dangerous thresholds. This was a significant finding as it indirectly dismissed the theory of suicide by overdose. So, who is the real culprit? Betsy's body would give us the answer. When forensic experts began examining Betsy Arakawa's body, they knew they were dealing with a complex case. She was not a chronic illness patient, had no history of severe disease, and did not leave a suicide note. This required analyzing every minute detail, from the decomposition level and external signs on the body to pharmacological factors and internal physiological responses. Ultimately, the forensic report not only confirmed the cause of Arakawa's death but also reinforced public suspicions from the beginning. Her death was not purely pathological but the result of a complex chain of psychosomatic reactions following an extreme emotional shock. Starting with external signs, Betsy Arakawa's body exhibited moderate decomposition, corresponding to a death occurring approximately 6 to 9 days before discovery. The skin on her hands and feet showed signs of mummification, a natural desiccation process in cold, dry climates, while her face displayed swelling. These are typical signs of moderate decomposition, aligning almost perfectly with data extracted from Gene Hackman's pacemaker, which recorded its last activity on February 17, nearly 9 days before the bodies were found. This indicated that Arakawa likely passed away either simultaneously with Hackman or just a few hours to a day later, strongly supporting the initial suspicion that her death was directly influenced by her husband's passing. A thorough external examination revealed no signs of trauma, impact, or physical aggression. There were no bruises, no scratches, and particularly no signs of strangulation, stabbing, or any violent act. This was a critically important finding as it completely ruled out the possibility of foul play, meaning harm caused by a third party or deliberate external actions. Additionally, there were no signs of convulsions, foaming at the mouth, or any symptoms associated with toxic gas poisoning, indicating that the surrounding environment was not a factor in her death. Subsequent tests to determine the concentration of active substances in Arakawa's blood and organs provided additional critical data. While the full toxicology results were still under analysis, initial signs revealed the presence of medications containing components affecting the nervous and cardiovascular systems, including mild sedatives and a drug used to treat arrhythmia. These were all medications typically prescribed to elderly individuals, particularly women with a history of anxiety or insomnia. However, there was no evidence that Arakawa had ingested these medications in amounts exceeding dangerous thresholds. There were no signs of drug shock or the typical liver and kidney damage associated with overdose. So, what really happened? The answer was found in a deeper analysis of Arakawa's heart function. Autopsy results revealed that her heart exhibited signs of left ventricular dilation, a rare condition that usually only occurs in cases of acute heart disease but without accompanying signs of coronary artery sclerosis or arterial blockage. This is a symptom of a peculiar and rare illness. To determine exactly what it was, we'll need to delve further into the analysis in the next section. 2. The real results. The autopsy results of Betsy Arakawa not only clarified the cause of her death but also reinforced a hypothesis that many had previously speculated: she died from an overwhelming emotional shock caused by the loss of her beloved husband, Gene Hackman. This is a classic sign of Takotsubo cardiomyopathy, also known as broken heart syndrome. The term originates from the distinctive shape of the left ventricle when it dilates, resembling the Japanese octopus trap called Takotsubo. This condition was first described in 1990 by Japanese doctors. Technically, Takotsubo cardiomyopathy is a form of acute heart failure that is not caused by coronary artery blockages but by an excessive reaction of the sympathetic nervous system, which leads to a sudden surge in catecholamine levels in the blood, including adrenaline and noradrenaline. These hormones cause the heart walls, particularly the left ventricle, to balloon outward, resulting in reduced pumping capacity, arrhythmias, and in severe cases, sudden death. The symptoms can closely mimic those of a traditional heart attack: chest pain, shortness of breath, and loss of consciousness. However, when coronary angiography is performed, no blockages are found, unlike in typical heart attacks. Notably, this syndrome is most common in women over 50, particularly those who have gone through menopause, a group that experiences significant hormonal changes and is more psychologically vulnerable. According to studies, the incidence of Takotsubo cardiomyopathy in women is 5 to 9 times higher than in men. The triggers do not originate within the body but rather from intense emotional shocks, the sudden death of a loved one, divorce, betrayal, or even excessively joyful events like winning the lottery. While the causes may vary, the common factor is profound emotional instability, a phenomenon modern medicine increasingly recognizes as a direct factor influencing cardiovascular physiology. In Betsy Arakawa's case, all the forensic data pointed to one conclusion: she had no history of heart disease, no signs of coronary artery blockages, no overdose of medication, and no external trauma. However, within hours of Gene Hackman's death, her life partner, confidant, and companion for over 3 decades, she too collapsed and never woke up. Based on histopathological findings of her heart and the signs of left ventricular dilation, the diagnosis of Takotsubo cardiomyopathy was not only medically plausible but also emotionally and psychologically convincing. What the public had suspected, that Betsy Arakawa died from the immense grief of losing Gene Hackman, was now confirmed through biological evidence and data. From the moment news of Betsy Arakawa's death was announced, many speculated that her passing was not a random event but was closely tied to Gene Hackman's death. The deep bond between the two, spanning more than 3 decades, was a testament to their inseparable love and connection. The autopsy results supported this hypothesis by confirming that Betsy did not die from any pathological or traumatic causes. Instead, the signs on her body were entirely consistent with Takotsubo cardiomyopathy. This indicated that Gene Hackman's death likely caused a profound psychological shock that triggered a severe physiological reaction in Betsy's body. The hypothesis of dying from grief is not new in medicine. Studies have shown that losing a loved one, particularly a spouse, can significantly increase the risk of death for the surviving partner, especially in the first few months following the event. This phenomenon is known as the widowhood effect, and it is often linked to cardiovascular issues, including broken heart syndrome. Betsy Arakawa, as a devoted wife and lifelong companion to Gene Hackman, was clearly deeply affected by his passing. Public speculation had long suggested that Betsy Arakawa's death was not an isolated incident but a direct consequence of the profound emotional connection she shared with Gene Hackman. Their story of love and devotion inspired many, but it also raised the question, can love be so powerful that it causes death? The autopsy results confirmed that it absolutely can. Broken heart syndrome is a clear medical example of how intense emotions can directly impact physical health, even to the point of causing death. 3. Other hypotheses regarding Betsy Arakawa's death. Although the autopsy results offered a highly compelling explanation for the cause of Betsy Arakawa's death, that she succumbed to Takotsubo syndrome, a rare but medically well-documented physiological reaction, this did not prevent a wave of alternative hypotheses from circulating in the public discourse. As with any incident involving prominent figures, the deaths of Gene Hackman and his wife Betsy Arakawa became the focal point of widespread speculation. Some theories were based on details from the scene, while others stemmed from the public's intrinsic fascination with sensational scenarios. In this section, we will analyze the alternative hypotheses that have been proposed, compare them with the autopsy findings, and determine why these theories lack sufficient evidence to replace the official conclusion. In the days immediately following the discovery of Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa's deaths, one of the theories that quickly gained traction in the media and on social networks was the possibility that the couple had planned to end their lives together, a form of companion suicide. Emotionally, this theory carried a deeply romantic undertone. The couple had been together for over 3 decades, lived a quiet and peaceful life, and chose to depart together in a serene, private manner, sparing the other from the burden of living alone. This theory was further fueled by a detail from the scene, an open prescription bottle with pills scattered around Mrs. Arakawa's body. To many, this appeared to be a classic sign of a pill overdose, a commonly perceived method of intentional and relatively painless suicide. However, when this theory was scrutinized under the lens of forensic examination and behavioral analysis, numerous inconsistencies emerged, quickly ruling it out as a plausible explanation. First is the matter of physical proximity. In cases of companion suicide, particularly among elderly couples, physical closeness is an almost universal factor. Statistics show that most couples who choose to die together are typically found in the same room, most commonly a bedroom, often lying side by side or even holding hands, creating a final declaration of their bond. In contrast, the bodies of Hackman and Arakawa were discovered in 2 entirely separate areas of their 9,000 square foot home, Hackman in the mudroom, typically used as a passageway or for storing shoes, and Arakawa in a bathroom near the front entrance. There was no indication that they spent their final moments together. Second is the organization of the scene and behavioral motivation. In planned suicides, there is often clear evidence of both psychological and physical preparation, farewell letters, tidied surroundings, or even selected music or lighting. These details not only indicate deliberate intent but also serve as an emotional legacy left by the deceased. In this case, there were no letters, no goodbye messages, no journal entries, no notes, nor any signs that the couple had discussed their intentions with each other or anyone else. This lack of preparation is highly unusual if the intentional suicide theory were accurate. Moreover, the presence of the prescription medication was not compelling enough to support this theory. Preliminary toxicology reports showed that the concentration of medication in Arakawa's bloodstream was not above toxic levels, and there was no evidence of intentional overdose. The medication found, a mild sedative and a heart treatment drug, was prescribed for long-term use and was not the type typically associated with rapid fatalities. This finding makes the possibility of deliberate overdose virtually non-existent. When all these factors are combined, the physical evidence, behavioral patterns, and forensic findings, it becomes clear that the theory of companion suicide, while emotionally evocative and appealing to public imagination, lacks any practical foundation. It might fit nicely into a fictional narrative, but it does not hold up in the real world, where every detail can reveal the truth. Another explanation, supported by some, was that the deaths of Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa were entirely separate events, unrelated to one another, and merely a tragic coincidence. According to this theory, Hackman, at the age of 95 and with a publicly disclosed history of heart disease, may have succumbed to a sudden heart attack or heart failure, a common occurrence in old age. Arakawa, nearly 3 decades younger, might have passed away afterward due to an undiagnosed health issue, such as a stroke, cardiac arrhythmia, or an underlying condition with no apparent symptoms. This hypothesis might seem reasonable at first glance, an elderly couple living together, dying around the same time. However, this apparent reasonableness quickly unravels when compared to the detailed autopsy findings. First, forensic pathologists found no signs of severe internal illnesses in Betsy Arakawa, no strokes, no pulmonary embolism, no acute kidney or liver damage. Her internal organs were intact, with no unusual swelling, inflammation, or evidence of infection. The structure of her brain showed no hemorrhaging or ischemia, 2 hallmarks of stroke victims. This effectively rules out most natural internal causes of death. Second, Arakawa's heart became the central focus of an unusual finding. It exhibited no signs of atherosclerosis or coronary artery blockage, but her left ventricle was dilated, a hallmark of Takotsubo syndrome. This type of damage only occurs when the heart is shocked by acute stress, a trace that cannot be fabricated. Notably, this symptom appeared almost simultaneously with Hackman's death. Statistically, the likelihood of 2 people dying from 2 unrelated natural causes within a few hours is astronomically low, almost zero. This makes the tragic coincidence theory illogical. Lastly, Arakawa had no history of severe medical conditions, no long-term medication regimen, and no history of heart disease, factors that further support the conclusion that her death was not due to a progressive illness. Her passing was sudden, without warning, and left no clues suggesting an underlying, undiagnosed ailment. From all these analyses, it can be concluded that the hypothesis of 2 independent deaths is implausible if we adhere to scientific evidence. When all other hypotheses fail to provide a logical, consistent explanation aligned with forensic data, public imagination often gravitates toward suspicion. Was there foul play? Was someone involved? Could a third party, motivated by assets, vengeance, or psychological instability, have intruded and acted? Clues such as a dead dog, scattered pills, or the separation of the bodies have been interpreted by some as evidence of an undiscovered conspiracy. However, when examined scientifically and objectively, this hypothesis lacks any foundation. The Hackman Arakawa residence was a heavily secured property in a gated community with private security, and its electronic lock system showed no signs of tampering. There were no signs of forced entry, no open windows, no broken locks, and no suspicious presence captured on cameras within the week leading up to the discovery of the bodies. The death of the dog, a detail that raised suspicions among many, was also clarified. Of their 3 dogs, only one died, the oldest, confirmed to have succumbed to natural respiratory failure. No toxins were found in its bloodstream, no evidence of poisoned food, and no signs of violence. The other 2 dogs remained completely healthy. It is not unusual for an elderly dog to die when left unattended. More importantly, the autopsy revealed no signs of trauma or poisoning. There were no needle marks, no soft tissue injuries, and no chemical agents outside the prescribed medication. Toxicology tests for poisons, gases, and synthetic drugs all came back negative. If foul play had been involved, there would undoubtedly have been evidence left behind. When cross-referencing the entire forensic record and scene investigation report, the theory of foul play is entirely baseless. The dog's death was determined to be natural, and the medication found near Arakawa was legally prescribed for treating anxiety and arrhythmia, not poison or banned substances. With all these factors, the possibility of homicide or poisoning is completely ruled out both legally and scientifically. Ultimately, when all other hypotheses fail to provide a logical, consistent, and evidence-backed explanation, only one possibility remains: Betsy Arakawa passed away due to broken heart syndrome, triggered by the extreme emotional shock of her husband's death. In such circumstances, her body was unable to cope with the sudden surge of stress hormones, leading to acute heart failure. This conclusion is not intended to romanticize a tragedy but to acknowledge a medical reality: that emotions can kill, in a manner entirely tangible and measurable. What makes this case particularly remarkable is that it was not just the public who believed in the broken heart theory. Forensic experts themselves, after ruling out all other causes, arrived at the same conclusion. In this instance, science and emotion, seemingly at opposite ends of the spectrum, converged in a rare moment of agreement. Loss can stop a heart, both metaphorically and literally. 4. Suspicious signs in the investigation. Although the final autopsy results provided a scientifically reasonable explanation for Betsy Arakawa's death, it cannot be denied that the initial investigation by the authorities left many lingering questions. From inconsistent statements to careless handling of the crime scene, these contradictions not only delayed the process of uncovering the truth but also plunged the public and media into a whirlwind of doubts, speculation, and confusion. From the very first days, the Santa Fe police issued conflicting information regarding the scene. Specifically, they initially reported that a German Shepherd had died at the scene alongside Hackman and Arakawa. However, a few days later, a forensic representative corrected this, stating that the deceased dog was an Australian Kelpie, blaming the discrepancy on a lack of knowledge about dog breeds. While this may seem like a minor administrative error, in the context of a mysterious double death, such carelessness in communication only served to fuel the flames of suspicion. Moreover, the statements from the police were often vague and contradictory. Initially, they asserted that there were no signs of foul play, ruling out the possibility of criminal activity. However, just days later, the police chief changed course, describing the case as suspicious due to certain unusual details at the scene. This lack of consistency in the initial investigative direction highlighted either a lack of internal agreement among the authorities or, worse, an incomplete understanding of the case at the time of their public statements. The handling of evidence and communication with the public also drew criticism from both experts and the general populace. Logbooks, personal phones, and medications found at the scene were reportedly collected, yet specific details were not disclosed to the public, even after the release of the autopsy conclusions. This lack of transparency left journalists scrambling to speculate, further fueling suspicions of a potential cover-up aimed at protecting the personal image or reputation of the deceased. Leaked reports, at times inconsistent with each other, only deepened the mystery, shrouding the truth in a thick fog of media confusion. The biggest question raised by the public is this: why did the home of one of America's most famous actors lack a robust security camera system capable of capturing footage during those fateful days? If cameras had been present, hypotheses ranging from suicide to poisoning to foul play could have been quickly verified or dismissed. Yet, the investigation report made no mention of any surveillance system. This led to rampant speculation: either cameras existed but were turned off, the footage was deleted, or there were no cameras installed in the first place. Regardless of the reason, the absence of surveillance evidence only made the investigation appear weak and unconvincing. The lack of transparency, conflicting information, and sloppy handling of the scene all contributed to growing public skepticism about the competence of the investigation and the authorities' ability to fully disclose the truth. Although the FBI later stepped in to assist with the investigation, the cracks in the early stages were too evident, and public trust was once again shaken. 5. Media reactions to the case. Gene Hackman has long been regarded as one of the greatest actors in cinematic history. With 2 Academy Awards and countless iconic roles in classic films such as The French Connection and Unforgiven, he rose to the pinnacle of his career. However, what made Hackman a true legend was not just his acting talent but also his decision to step away from the limelight to lead a quiet life with his wife, Betsy Arakawa. Betsy Arakawa, while not a celebrity like her husband, was often described by Hackman's friends and admirers as a compassionate, intelligent woman who served as an indispensable pillar of support in his life. Their more than 3-decade-long marriage stood as a testament to true love, a rarity in the tumultuous world of Hollywood. When the autopsy confirmed that Betsy had died from broken heart syndrome following Hackman's death, her image became even more poignant in the eyes of the public. This revelation not only underscored the deep emotional connection they shared but also symbolized a bond that transcended the boundaries of life and death. To audiences, Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa were not just a famous couple but a representation of enduring love and mutual sacrifice. From the moment news of Hackman and Arakawa's deaths broke, the public expressed profound sorrow. Fans of Hackman, spanning multiple generations, grieved not only for the loss of a legendary actor but also for the tragic love story of him and his wife. When the autopsy findings were released, public reactions became even stronger. Broken heart syndrome, which had often been regarded as a symbolic concept, was now recognized as a real medical phenomenon, clearly exemplified in Betsy Arakawa's case. Many expressed empathy for the couple's tragedy, seeing it as a testament to the power of love and the devastating effects of loss. However, alongside these sentiments was a significant wave of skepticism. People began to question, can someone truly die of grief? Could there be other causes that were being concealed? Why were the investigators inconsistent in their statements, slow in disclosing findings, and riddled with procedural errors? Details from the scene, delays in releasing information, and contradictions in reports all contributed to a cloud of uncertainty, leading many to believe that there might be something still left unsaid. In this void of clarity, the media played a central role in amplifying or distorting the narrative. Some television channels and online publications sensationalized the case, framing it with a near-criminal tone, using suggestive language, and creating reconstructed scenes with manipulated imagery to emphasize the mystery surrounding the deaths. Unsubstantiated theories about a third party, strange medications, or financial conspiracies were openly floated. In contrast, reputable magazines and experts took a different approach, focusing on the autopsy findings, interviewing forensic specialists, and explaining Takotsubo cardiomyopathy through scientific arguments. This divergence in coverage led to a fragmented public perception, leaving individuals to choose whichever version of the truth they found most convincing. International media also devoted significant attention to Gene Hackman, not only celebrating his monumental contributions to cinema but also highlighting the way he lived a fulfilling life with his wife. Articles, documentaries, and social media content repeatedly referenced Hackman and Arakawa's story as a reminder of the value of love and sacrifice in relationships. The autopsy findings of Betsy Arakawa drew attention not only within the entertainment industry but also in the fields of medicine and public health. Broken heart syndrome, once dismissed as a rare or symbolic condition, is now being taken more seriously in medical discourse. Betsy Arakawa's case highlighted the connection between emotions and heart health, emphasizing the importance of recognizing and treating the early signs of Takotsubo cardiomyopathy. Emotional shocks, whether from intense grief or even overwhelming joy, can have severe consequences for the body, particularly for high-risk individuals like older women. For the medical community, this case served as a powerful reminder of the need to consider psychological factors when addressing physical health. This is especially important as growing research continues to reveal how stress, anxiety, and other negative emotions can significantly affect the cardiovascular system. On a societal level, the story of Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa sparked deep conversations about love, loss, and coping with emotional trauma. The public viewed their deaths not just as a personal tragedy but also as a poignant reminder of life's fragility and impermanence. This case also underscored the importance of providing emotional support to individuals experiencing loss. Often, those grieving the death of a loved one are overlooked or do not receive the necessary care to cope with their pain. Betsy Arakawa's case is a clear example of how unaddressed grief can lead to serious, even fatal, consequences without timely intervention. The deaths of Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa leave behind an indelible legacy, not only in the world of cinema but also in the hearts of the public. Hackman, with his illustrious career and immense contributions to the arts, has long been a symbol of greatness. However, through the tragic love story and passing of him and his wife, his legacy has taken on a deeply human and emotional dimension. The public will remember Hackman not only for his outstanding performances but also for the way he lived his life, balancing career and family, the glamour of Hollywood with the simplicity of everyday life. Betsy Arakawa, though not a star herself, has become an inseparable part of Hackman's legacy, symbolizing love, sacrifice, and emotional strength. This story also paves the way for new directions in research and public awareness about broken heart syndrome and the impact of emotions on physical health. Betsy Arakawa's case is a vivid example of how emotional shock can result in severe consequences, particularly for those at greater risk. The medical field must intensify research into this syndrome to better understand its mechanisms and develop more effective treatments. Simultaneously, educating the public about broken heart syndrome is essential so that individuals can recognize and address the condition promptly, whether in themselves or their loved ones. Furthermore, healthcare and social organizations must strengthen efforts to provide psychological support for those dealing with loss. Counseling programs, mental health resources, and public education campaigns about emotional well-being can help mitigate the risks of similar cases like Betsy Arakawa's. The deaths of Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa, while tragic, serve as a powerful reminder of the interconnectedness of love, loss, and health, a legacy that will continue to resonate across both personal and public domains. The deaths of Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa truly encapsulate both tragedy and inspiration. Their story is a profound testament to love, loyalty, and an unbreakable bond that transcends life itself. The legacy they left behind goes beyond their personal achievements, serving as a powerful reminder of how love can shape not only our lives but also our health and well-being. Their relationship teaches us that love is not merely a part of life, it can be a force so strong that it defines our happiness and even our survival. Though they are no longer with us, their story will continue to resonate as a symbol of true love and the extraordinary strength of emotions. What do you think about this heart-wrenching yet inspiring story? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay connected with more heartfelt stories like this one.